Hi guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. This week is about growing your program. So yesterday I talked about different ways you can involve your players to create buy-in. Today is a little bit more difficult because now you're starting to work towards adults. So I don't know what situation you're in. I don't know how many assistants you have, if you inherited them or if you brought them in. But either way, it's very important that the head coach and the assistant coaches are on the same page. There's lots of ways you can do this. Again, this is not an exact science, and a lot of these things I've kind of learned as I've gone, and I've changed year to year as I've tried to become better at what I do. If you'd like more information, I think I've got a whole thing on my website called Building Your Staff. You can go to FB Coach Simpson and get that, which is going to go a lot more in depth than I'm going right now. You can even get my head coaching course stuff, which is on CoachTube. But today we're going to talk about a couple different places to involve your coaches. Number one, you need to know what your coach's goals are. Each assistant coach is different. Some assistant coaches, I want to be a head coach. This is where I want to go. Some assistant coaches are really happy in the role they have. And so that's a different type of mentality in your coaches. Some assistant coaches you may have, football is their other sport. I know that's hard to hear, but sometimes their main sport might be X and football is their second sport. You need to know that as you're working with these coaches. It doesn't mean you lower the bar or don't expect more from your other coaches or you dump everything on some guys, but it does change the dynamics a lot of times of what you're trying to accomplish with these coaches. For me, I would like to hire as many coaches that want to be a head coach as possible. That's the number one thing. I wish my whole staff was that, but that's not reality. Okay, and so sometimes you don't have those guys that have those ambitions. So for those coaches, a lot of times it's, here's my expectations, here's what I'd like to have done. We'd love to have you involved in this stuff, but they're not going to get as much of the behind the scenes kind of opportunities to grow as a coach. If you've got a coach on your staff that wants to be a head coach, now we're going to be able to, hey, let's make you the head coach of this area inside of our program. Those guys are going to have a lot more ambition. That's not always a great thing because they need to understand that, hey, it's your program still, but we do want to involve you and help you grow as a head coach. So a lot of times those coaches and I will have a lot more conversations about why decisions were made, not because I don't tell everyone that, but because they're interested in learning how I came to the decision I did. Second thing I'd say is learn to delegate. If you have a staff of 20 or a staff of 3, if you don't delegate, it doesn't even matter. You have a staff of 1. Learn to use your coaches in areas they're going to be successful in. And we'll first talk about kind of the on the field schematic area. Teach your coaches what drills you want done, how you want them done, how you want your players being addressed. We have a coach's manual that's on my website if you'd like to go get it. That has grown from 15 pages to now it's like 40 some odd pages because each year I learn, hey, let's put that in there and address that. The more things you can address on the front end and learn to delegate to your assistants, the more work can be done. Just the reality of 1 versus 3. 3 is a bigger number or 12 is a bigger number. But if you don't give them expectations and delegate the correct way, you're going to have a lot of frustration. And what I mean by that is, when I used to delegate, it meant I gave this guy a job, I didn't really give him a lot of guidelines, and I got really mad when it didn't get done. Delegating for a head coach is a whole lot of work on the front end. You got to teach your expectations to that coach. You got to teach how you want it done. You got to teach, the mentality behind it and why it's important. So a lot of times, just like when you have a son, when you're teaching him to do a job, it takes a lot longer the first time. But then after they figure it out, it goes a lot smoother. I'd also say make sure you give them some ownership in this. They're not a carbon copy of you, so give non-negotiables, but then give some freedom. If you're going to give a guy a job, he's not a robot. Allow him to have a little bit of say. Third thing I want to talk about is off-the-field areas. I think this is one of the things that I've started doing a lot more in my program, and I really have enjoyed it. I think my assistants have even enjoyed it, is we find out areas in the program and you kind of give them ownership in that. That could be something like social media. That could be something like being in charge of helping with fundraising or being in charge of, our weight room, different areas inside of our weight room. There's a lot of different things on the coaches, on a head coach that are off the field that need to be addressed and taken care of. It could be helping your players get recruited. It could be helping check with grades. There's a lot of things that are fun to do. There's a lot of things that are not so fun to do. So you want to make sure you divide those up pretty equally. What I mean by that is I had a coach at Southside who he was always in charge of doing our ordering for like cloth gear and stuff. That's not a fun job. But because he did that, I also allowed him to have a lot of the decisions as far as what our uniform looked like. That is a fun part of the job. And so you kind of combine, this part is enjoyable, this part's not enjoyable, but you're in charge of that whole area. Here's my expectations for you. Now you've got it. And that's how you delegate and you create buy-in with your assistant coaches because they know that their opinion has value to you. Again, I've got a lot more information on my website. There's a lot of different things you can go through and get. That head coaching deals on CoachTube. If you have not done so already, if you don't mind liking and subscribing to my channel, once I get to 1,000, we'll start doing a few of these things live. I'm kind of excited about that. Appreciate your interest. Thank you.